which is great. But then when you go to learn your solos, well, you're going to be that. What happened to me was I found that that slowed me down with my solos, was having a guitar that had too much radius at the at the heel joint, and that you couldn't get the solos as quick and fast and as fluent because it wasn't flat enough. You know what I mean? Where you could really get your fingers up there like that, right? So when you're doing your chords, you tend to be more like this. When you're soloing, you tend to be more like this, right? Proper technique, and thumb where it's supposed to be. And the fingerboard radius kind of naturally makes you like, there's a reason why the 60s guitar players don't sound like 90s guitar players or the new guitar players now. The new guitar players now, which is more like getting into this stuff like 6 and 7 and 8 strings, I find even myself just going so many years through so many different types of guitars, and then playing everything in the music stores. I highly recommend any music store you go to, whatever guitar's on the wall, try it. Even if it's I don't like that guitar, play it anyway. You'd be surprised what will surprise you. And but it is something that, like, if you're going to be more, let's say you're recording and you really want a guitar that really kind of does the clean thing really well. This is why like Telecasters, Les Pauls, SGs, and Stratocasters tend to dominate the more clean electric guitar sounds, is because the way they're set up, like Gibson is still pandering to 1960s and 70s guitar players, right? They haven't made a modern guitar yet. Yeah, they're SG moderns. They're not. They're still a vintage sounding guitar, and that's fine. I mean, that's what people like them for. But if you take like say 80s metal guitar players, they'll get it like like a Les Paul or like an SG or something like that, and pop some Seymour Duncans in it or EMGs or whatever. Think like Zach Wilde type guys, right? And to get more modern sounds, but they're still playing on a guitar that has this fingerboard that kind of is in the middle of the road, that allows you to get away with the metally stuff. But when they want to go into, say, like super shred mode, like think like not even Ingve, like Ingve's kind of an exception to the rule because he plays really old Stratocasters that are just hot rodded to what he likes. But if you take like say like like a Dave Mustaine type of thing, right? Dave Mustaine typically does like like I haven't tried his new Flying Bees or whatever, but he typically plays more like this, right? So he gets a different sound. It's not even all just in the rig. Like a lot of your playing style is molded by how the guitar plays for you. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to play the same way on the SG as you are on the H string. The H string is kind of a, like the way like your hands don't position the same way, which makes you fret differently, which makes you actually articulate your notes differently. It changes your style, so to speak. Not big, but like it's something that you don't do it the same way, right? Um, so it's like driving a car, it's like the difference between driving a car and a truck. Yes, they'll both get you from point A to point B, but it's just a different mode to get there. There's a different style to it, right? And I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but that's what I'll go with. So a lot of the beginner guitars out there are going with compound radius fretboards, which again might be the best way to go because it allows you to do everything. But let's say you're like a real bluesy guy, like and like old time blues. The compound radius fretboards don't quite give you that old vintage sound, right? So like you're not going to be you're not going to be Stevie Ray Vaughning on this thing. You know what I mean? As much. I mean, I'm not saying you can't play like Stevie Ray Vaughan on it, but it's not going to give you that, right? You really need that, that package to, that Stratocaster package with that radius of fingerboard to get those kind of notes. So I think I've kind of covered. I mean, there's other, the radius of the fretboard in relative to your frets. Like again, that the most noticeable thing is going to be the string bending, but you know, the other thing too is like your frets. Almost every guitar nowadays, has jumbo frets on it. Ibanez use railroad ties. They're super duper jumbo frets, and that changes the sound too. But the whole thing about having the note clarity and everything like that when you're up high on the fretboard, like again with a more radius, your fingers tend to run into the neighboring string. Where it's flatter, you can, like I say, you can get up a bit more like that, and you can clean up the notes. But then it's the opposite with the chords, where you got to flatten out more for the chords. So that's just what I found over the years. Again, I don't really have a die-hard preference for the fretboard radiuses that are out there now. I could live with the Jackson fretboard radiuses and Charvels and Ibanez and all that. I think their fretboard radiuses are fine for most things. But I do notice that I work a little harder doing chords on that. Also, the scale length has a bit to do with it than I do on, the Gibsons. I find the Gibsons are just about right in the middle, where the Jacksons are kind of achieved. These two have achieved kind of the same thing in different ways. So with the Gibsons, they got the same radius the whole way pretty much, but they gave you a radius that you can live with for leads and live with for, big chords. The Jackson, what they did was they, instead of taking a compromise radius, what they did is they compounded the radius so that you can live with the chords down there a lot better, where you're more likely to do chords, and then give you the flat stuff at the top to really get the speed out of it. So it's kind of two ways of skinning a cat here. I'm not suggesting you should go skinning cats, but if you had to, that's how you do it. But most of the modern guitars, Jacksons, Charvels, Ibanez's, even your JS32 Jacksons are going to have the compound radius. It's just kind of, that's the conveyor belt. Regardless of what price range you are with a Jackson, pretty much that's what's coming. That's what it's coming with. Same thing with the Gibsons. Their jigs they make a certain radius fretboard. I'm sure there's a few different, like for the, like the hollow body stuff probably has more radius on it. That kind of stuff. LTD, ESP, again, they tend to have really flat fingerboards, but they also do probably compound radius on most of their stuff. PRS, on the other hand, this is probably like the different PRSs. They're the only two PRSs I know with 20-degree fingerboards is the Mark Holcomb guitars. The rest are all whatever they normally use, which is probably more whatever Fender uses. I'm not 100% sure what Fender uses in general. But again, if you compare like new guitars, when I say new guitars, I'm talking like 1980s on, to older electric guitars. If you ever try a really old Stratocaster, you'll see what I mean. Like you'll pick it up and it feels like you could feel the radius. Like a 12-degree radius or whatever. And there'll be guys out there saying, oh, that was the best. Why did they ever stop? Because it wasn't the best. Again, it had its vines of how you could, do vibrato and stuff like that. But it had its vices that it was really easy and comfortable to play for chords. So hopefully that makes sense. So we better look, Dad. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, if you like this kind of content, all links are down below. To support, and next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, be true to yourself, be true to others, always do the right thing. Have yourselves a great day, eh?